Everyone, I'm speaking to you from Stansted Airport in London. I don't have a lot of time because I have a flight to catch, but I just want to give you some quick feedback in terms of where we are and what lies ahead, because there are some big things happening and big things that will be happening later in this month. So we took a quick sort of unplanned trip to London for a few days. And it was a very, very fruitful trip. I was very privileged and pleased to meet Ayaan Hirsi Ali, who I'm sure you know, the Somalian-born person who grew up, I believe, in Kenya, who eventually went to the Netherlands, where she became a member of parliament. She converted from Islam to Christianity. And she's a very outspoken defender of Christianity and of the West and Western values, Western tradition and so forth. And she's also persecuted currently for her beliefs and her criticism of Islam and so forth. And I've been following her for some time, and I'm very happy to have been able to meet her during this trip. We also did a podcast which will be published on her channel. I'm not sure when, but I'm sure it will be soon. And I will definitely share that with you guys on this channel. So if you haven't subscribed yet, I'll share the link to my subscribers when it's published. But that's not the only reason we came here. There were, in fact, a few meetings that happened that sort of came our way, a few opportunities, and we discussed it at Lex Libertas, discussed it with the team, and we decided we need to do this, even though we didn't plan on doing a London trip. I'm going to give you feedback on the other meetings I had later on. I spoke with some members of parliament, I spoke with some journalists, spoke with some people about a big project that I'd like to follow up on, that I'm very excited about, but it's too early because the project is still sort of taking shape, so I will let you know about that as it progresses. But I'm very happy that we were here, and I have to play open cards with you in the sense that Lex Libertas is still a fairly new institution. And we were not really able to do a trip like this, but we figured that the opportunity is big enough that we have to take it. And so I'm going to get back to that. But let me just say now, we announced the Truth Be Told campaign maybe a month ago. It was just a quick version thereof. It was shortly after the Trump-Ramaphosa meeting in the White House, and where a lot of people in South Africa and in America especially were utterly and blindly committed to trying to tell the world that there's no problem in South Africa. That if President Trump says there's a problem, that means there is no problem because he's a liar. You know that narrative. And so we've seen that in South Africa for some time, some people in the mainstream media, and now also some people in America. And I've mentioned this before, people like, on The View, that's the classic example. But there were also people like Jimmy Kimmel who spoke about Donald Trump and his made-up farm murders. Now, imagine, if you don't live in South Africa, imagine having grown up in an agricultural community in South Africa, or living on a farm in South Africa, knowing people who have been attacked, perhaps having been attacked yourself, having known people who were murdered on farms, and then having someone like Jimmy Kimmel on a platform as big as he is say that the whole problem is just made up. It's really, really, really atrocious. And so we announced this Truth Be Told campaign to say that even though there's a debate about the statistics and the data, and one that has to be continued, and one that we have to participate in, it's very important to ensure that the stories also come out, that people are able to say what actually happened to them, that people share their stories. So we need to up our game in terms of talking about the data and so forth. We shouldn't talk about that less, but we certainly need to talk much more about the personal stories that people experience in South Africa. And so we started this campaign and encouraged people who have experienced farm attacks, who have experienced exclusion or discrimination as a result of the more than 140 race laws in South Africa, people who have experienced threats to their property, land invasions and so forth, and people whose lives have been impaired as a result of state failure or government collapse in South Africa, to share their stories with us. And very quickly we got more than 150 of these personal testimonies, I would say. We're currently going through all of them, verifying as much as we can, and following up with the people to make sure that the who, where, what, why, all of that information is included, case numbers where it's applicable, and also media reports if it's a story that was covered in the media, to make it as comprehensive as possible. And we're going to publish that report, that bundle of stories, very soon. In fact, we want to publish it in Washington, D.C. just in a few weeks from now. And I'm going to get back to that. So if you live in South Africa, if you have such a story, you can share it with us through our website. I'll put the link in the description. But please make it as complete and comprehensive as possible. We're also using this not just to share the stories, but to have it available for journalists, podcasters, researchers, and so forth, especially from outside of South Africa, who visit South Africa, who want to speak to people who have experienced such stories, to connect them with people who have experienced it and who are willing to talk. And we have already achieved some progress in this. We have already had an American journalist coming to South Africa speaking to some of the victims. We discussed this now on Ayaan's podcast. I discussed it with Jim Ferguson now while I was in London just 2 days ago. And we're taking this to the US. So this campaign is going to be extremely important going forward in terms of sharing our stories with the world. But what is also important is that we shouldn't just talk about the statistics, even though we need to talk about it more. We shouldn't just talk about the stories, even though we need to talk about it a lot more. What we should especially talk about increasingly is what ought to be done. So while we need to keep talking about the fact that there are more than 140 race laws, we need to keep talking about the hate speech in South Africa, the farm killings, and so forth, we need to say what now? What can change? And I don't want to go into the what can change part too much now, because I'm going to go into that a lot in the near future, because we're going to publish a report on that very soon. I'm talking within the next few weeks. We're going to release that, and then we're going to publish it also in Washington, D.C. later this month. What I can say for now is we will be talking about policy changes that needs to happen within South Africa, what needs to happen within the current realities, within the current system. But more importantly, what we call macro-political changes. In other words, how should the political system in South Africa be changed to be more sustainable, to promote more freedom for the communities living in South Africa, to decentralize government, and so forth. So we're going to publish that soon. And that is why we have to, in the near future, I'm talking 2 weeks from now, do a follow-up trip to the United States. I was invited by one of the big and influential think tanks in Washington, D.C. to address a conference, I believe on the 24th of July in Washington, D.C., which I'm very much looking forward to. As I said, it's an influential think tank, and I've spoken with a lot of people who I know in the area who plan on attending this, to talk not just about the stories and so forth, which we certainly will do, but also about the what now part. What can we do? What are we doing in South Africa? And what could our friends abroad do? What can foreign governments do? What can institutions outside of South Africa, people who support and so forth, do to contribute to a solution? Now, I'm probably going to spend 2 weeks in the US later in July, and I will speak at this conference. I also have a list of meetings, individual meetings that is scheduled or currently planned, media interviews, podcast interviews, some of the podcasts I've been on recently, to follow up with them, go back, speak with them again, follow up with more, reach out to more people. And in fact, I have a list, the list that I'm working on currently in terms of following up with people, arranging meetings and so forth, is literally more than a page if you write it down. So it's way too much, way too many things to follow up to be able to squeeze into 2 weeks. But we're gonna have to do as much of that as we can. And if we need to stay longer, then we will. But there's just so much that needs to happen. And I should add that we also, part of the plan, the follow-up, is to bring some of those people to South Africa, not just to let them talk about South Africa from the US and from other countries, but to actually invite these people especially big international names, to come to South Africa, to make documentary films in South Africa, to speak with the people who participated in this Truth Be Told campaign, to speak at conferences and so forth. And I think we're going to make that happen. I think it's reasonable to say that it's a probable outcome, but there's a lot of work to do. And I need to talk to you about that because Lex Libertas is a new institution. It was founded just more than 100 days ago. We're punching way above our weight at the moment, for which we are very grateful, but also we have too much planned for our resources to carry at this stage. So I would really like to encourage you to help us make this possible. Help us make this possible, to stay a bit longer if needs be, to get to speak to all of these people, to get to bring these people to South Africa, to get to appoint researchers to help us with research about the crisis in South Africa, the solution, to do conferences about that within South Africa and abroad and so forth. There's a lot that we need to do. There's a window of opportunity because there's a lot of international focus on South Africa right now. We need to build on this. We need to expand our networks, and we need to get credible information out there to share the personal stories that people experience in South Africa, and then most importantly, after all of that, to make sure that we get to tangible, practical solutions. And that is what we are going to work on in the weeks, months and years to follow, but we really need your support. So I'm going to put a link up in the description and in a comment where you can contribute to Lex Libertas, and if you do that, we would really appreciate that, and also we will certainly keep all our contributors posted as we progress. Thank you very much.